Perhaps many of you know that Bashir al-Assad is the son of the former president and dictator of Syria, Hafez al-Assad, who ruled Syria for 40 years, from 1970 until 2000. I should also say, as a student, he was part of the Ba'ath Party, and you often hear that name, the Ba'ath Party. It's a party that had its origins in Syria in the 1940s. Its principles were Arab nationalism, pan-Arabism, the idea of unifying Arabs, doing away with these boundaries that they saw as imposed upon the Middle East by European colonialism, and socialism, Arab socialism. And on the religious question, trying to take a non-sectarian view towards religious issues. And this is the party that, Hafez Assad joins as a student, comes to dominate, and then he went on, pursued a military career, became first commander of the Air Force and then defense minister, and finally in 1970 seizes power. And I think one could say, that you have what becomes a dictatorship under Hafez Assad and a brutal one in Syria in those 40 years.
I have friends that have been taken to prison, being tortured, just because one of my friends, she was an artist. She drew something about the revolution, and she was taken for 1 year and tortured in prison. So it's a very brutal regime, a regime that's not afraid of using weapons. There was an article that was written in Al Jazeera when the revolution first started. The article said there is no humanity left in Syria, and this is so true. He saw civilians, they were walking, marching out the street, just chanting, no weapons. They did not have any weapons, and he just started shooting them, and piles of bodies. And the world did not stop him. The world just watched. For 2.5 years, the world was just watching. In fact, my family, sometimes when I talk to them, they say, the world doesn't care about us. It's like we belong to a different race. It's like we're not human. They don't care. So I'm glad now to see that the Obama administration has taken interest in the matter. The chemical attack that happened August 21st was not the last thing that the Assad regime has done from then to now. There is a recent article that actually is written in the Al Jazeera. I recommend you read it. The article talks about what the world overlooked in Syria, and it talked about 1,500 people that have died since that chemical attack on August 21st until today. There are mass graves that have been recovered. That's after the chemical attack. This is after us moving ships into the water and saying, we're going to attack you if you continue using chemical weapons. And he's still killing. He doesn't care. So the way I look at the situation now, I see that he created chaos in the country. There is a need for a resolution. This resolution is not going to happen without force. He has Iran on his side. He has Hezbollah fighting with him. He has Russia giving him weapons. That's why I don't trust the Russian deal right now. And all actually Syrians, they don't trust this deal because Russians have been in bed with Assad since the 1970s, so we truly do not trust them. But we need a resolution. We need a bigger power to come in and say, we need you out. We need you to be removed so Syria's war can be stopped. Because with him being in power, the war will not stop, and more people are going to die.
Limited military intervention is necessary in order to deter Syria from future use of chemical weapons, as well as to degrade its current capabilities. This strike would be meant to send a message to the Assad regime. The continued use of these weapons is unacceptable, a message that really has not been communicated very well or very clearly up to this point. Syrian government forces have been using chemical weapons for months in Syria without serious international response or repercussions. And this latest and largest attack may have actually been a miscalculation in terms of the amount of gas used and the scale of destruction, but it follows a a previous pattern of use of chemical weapons. So a response is evidently required to make it clear that the use of this class of weaponry will not be tolerated. And Pentagon officials have described strikes that would be designed to send this particular message. They've said that the strikes would be targeted specifically at the military units that have used chemical weapons, as well as their headquarters and any deployment capabilities that the regime has. Any strikes would not target chemical weapons facilities because this could have environmental or humanitarian effects and open up these sites potentially to looters. And such operations would not be designed to change the regime, only to degrade its capabilities and dissuade it from carrying out future chemical attacks for fear of the consequences.
On August 28th, in a major policy speech, NATO Secretary General said that the use of chemical weapons cannot go unanswered. However, he could not specify what an answer would constitute. What is NATO capable of doing? What came out of these multiple North Atlantic Council meetings is a sense of disappointment, again, in America. And whenever you have NATO failing to deliver on its key purpose, there always reappear questions of its utility amongst US policymakers and pundits. This time, that criticism of NATO, I have to say, is more muted. And I think there are three key factors behind it. One is that there hasn't been an open and overt challenge to the US by Europeans on Syria. So as opposed to Iraq, when a Franco-German, I'd say, core alliance in Europe challenged Bush Jr. Very strongly, this time European response is very shy. And definitely no one's thinking too hard on criticizing Obama for wanting to intervene. Everyone's in European capitals trying to keep a low profile. Second reason is that we have a non-conservative administration in DC this time around. And it is a tradition amongst GOP led administrations and neoconservatives, more specifically, to be very critical of Europe and its failures to act internationally. Finally, America itself has less appetite to quibble with Europe over Syria because, as has been suggested, Syria is less of a strategic issue for America, less strategic and more supposedly humanitarian importance, which is something very debatable, but it is out there as an idea.